Thanks for joining us as we compare the movies Braveheart, 1995, to Mary Queen of Scots, 2018, otherwise known as
Epic Freedom in 1995. Political correctness in 2018.
Oh my gosh, I did not think you were going to do the theatrics there, but that works.
If you're giving me a heads up, I will brought a special hat for it.
I'm glad we don't do heads up. My name is John Newton, historical and science fiction author. I usually just say science fiction. I'm joined today by
Eric from Your Brother in Christ, otherwise the crazy one.
Yeah, that's true. The man with the hats. And we're comparing two historical movies about Scottish politics. Oh, that sounds so boring, Scottish politics. But go figure, Braveheart was not boring. So there is that. One movie that came out in the mid-1990s, and the other movie that we're going to be looking at came out in 2019. That's what we did way back when we talked about comparing two movies previously, Elsaid in 1961 and Kingdom of Heaven in 2005. And so as part of Braveheart's 30th anniversary, yes, it's been 30 years since Braveheart has come out, we're going to ask a similar question that we asked when we compared those two movies previously. Do you remember which those two were? These here?
Talking about
yes, we compared that.
Elsaid and
yes.
Kingdom of Heaven?
Yes,
we
compared those.
Said?
The ones I just said.
These
so
are the ones you
just
said.
like that, we're going to do it to Braveheart and Mary Queen of Scots.
Yeah, I had no clue about this Mary Queen of Scots thing until you're like, hey, we need to do this review. I was like, it's a bad sign. I haven't heard anything about it.
Yeah, we're going to dig in. I'm going to try it.
I normally like the history stuff, okay? So normally I'm on top of the history stuff.
Well, okay, so I approached this with trying to be, I don't know if you say open-minded, but I wanted to try to keep any personal bias out of this and looked at the movies side by side. And the two movies here are separated about by a generation or so, just like the other one. Maybe that was 2 generations with that one. But there was, the question is, was there a bias switch? Was there a bias in Braveheart? And did that switch with Mary Queen of Scots? Now, on the other hand, we're just picking two movies that happen to be, one was medieval, the other one's early modern era, but they're both the same region, Scottish politics.
Same region,
right?
A lot of the same influences.
So the question is, how are they going to be handled a generation apart? Now, you can't just look at those two movies by themselves and say it's reflective of the industry in general. However, I think everybody pretty much knows there has been a trend.
There's a shift.
And so we're going to look at these two in that light to say this. Now, they did have, apparently, looks like different audiences with this as well. But we'll dig into this. So we'll ask, not only is there a bias shift, but how historically accurate are these two movies? We're going to pick them both apart. And, hey, got to be brutal with Braveheart, just like we're with the other one. And does being historically accurate even make a difference? I mean, who cares?
So.
It's just a movie, as people would say.
Well, the problem is people just watch the movie and say, oh, that's what must have happened.
That's right.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
Because they watch that and say, see, that's what actually happened. And then it's just off in La La Land. Although I will say I was pretty surprised, all in all, with Mary Queen of Scots.
You were? Regards. Oh, I need to put the finger out as I drink my coffee. Okay. So before we get started, my friends, I want to point you to another direction, and that is please click the like and subscribe click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And if you enjoy historical movies, especially during the Middle Ages, you might like this novel right here,
also,
The Healing
Stone. Share the live stream.
Yeah, if you can, share it, because that really does help too.
Oh yeah, huge impact.
Huge
Believe
impact.
it or not.
Share it to your aunt. Even though she doesn't have YouTube, share it with her anyway. In the year 1212, the war for control over time reaches a crucial moment. That's not either of these movies. That's what this novel is. At the heart of this struggle is Francisco, a young man who wields a mysterious healing stone. He has no idea he is the one of 6 recruits foretold to end the Time War. Both factions of the Time War are trying to win him over, and he must navigate the line between healer and warrior. So if you're interested in that, there's a link for that novel in the description. And if you do, please leave a review. Those reviews are hugely powerful, just like sharing this video. So we took a poll, actually 4 different polls before this video.
Someone's poll happy.
I was poll happy. It was fantastic. So the first one was asking which film has a higher audience rating, Braveheart and Mary Queen of Scots. Both of them tell epic stories, but which one resonated more with audiences? So as you can see,
either equal or like there's Stark with the equal or Braveheart one.
Yeah, that's it. There's no other.
There's no one voted that Mary Queen of Scots was better than Braveheart.
So yeah, Braveheart, Mary Queen of Scots, or they're about the same, or neither was well liked by audiences. So you see the thumbs down and the popcorn.
Well, yeah,
being poured out.
My point is there's a very stark contrast.
Yeah, there is. Between the two. So 86% went for Braveheart, 0 for Mary Queen of Scots, and 14 for they're about the same. So there's real data behind that, just besides our polling. So which one resonated more with audiences? Braveheart got an 85% audience score and snagged 5 Oscars and 1 Best Picture. Okay. Mary Queen of Scots, 41% audience score. You know how many Oscars or
2 awards?
2 awards?
2 awards.
That is a good guess, but the answer is no.
Oh, 3?
No, none. It got 2 nominations.
Oh, it got nominations.
Yes,
I thought it got rewards for like best
dress. Yeah, it did.
What?
Best costume design.
Best costume design.
Best makeup and hairstyle.
That would be 2.
Yeah, because one of those are combined into one. So it's best costume design and best makeup and hairstyle.
Okay.
Got it? Okay. So, but anyway, it didn't really resonate that much, as you can see.
How many awards it got, right?
Yeah.
I answered 2.
You said 3.
I was wrong. No, I said 2 originally, and they said
I want to rewatch this
video
video and see if you said,
because you told me 0.
It did not. It only got nominated.
Okay, so it was only nominated. It was never awarded.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, it didn't get any at all. All right, so I'm gonna check the chat and see what we got here. Okay, we got comments from Goatastic.
Goatastic. I think that's going to follow me around now.
Why is that becoming more of a
thing on my channel?
Okay, all right. You doing some goat things, huh?
Yep.
All right,
it's working out.
And if John wants to do a review, it's generally a bad sign.
I want to review this movie. No, I like that movie.
We had some 10s on here.
I have yet to give a single 10.
Yeah, you do. I guess you're holding out.
The highest is 9.
That's okay.
Nothing's
and what did you give that was a 9?
I think it was Godzilla.
Godzilla was 1. And I didn't get that.
What the other ones were.
I forget too. I'd have to go back and review. But yeah, so there's some good ones. But man, I tell you what, they have not been putting out very. I would not say that that Hollywood has been putting out very good material recently. So hey, is what it is. You mean Eric? Not at all. I'm curious what a 10 movie is for Eric.
I don't know. I haven't seen one yet.
What would you haven't seen one at all? You ain't seen like Lord of the Rings?
No, Lord of the Rings I'd say is 10.
Okay.
Well, we haven't done any reviews on any of the ones that I would put as a 10.
We did do Lord of the Rings.
Well, then Lord of the Rings would have been 10. I don't know why you didn't ask me then.
Just
probably did.
Go find it.
I probably gave it a 10. And
next novel, this Standing Stone, then the Rolling Stone, then the Stone Crushing Tale. No, the next one is
that's actually
the next novel is The Stone Inside. So it does have the stone, but the one after that is not, and that is, I don't know if I should say what the name of that novel is, because that's going to sort of be a reveal. But it does not have stone in the name. That's something else. And you got to find out what the stone actually is. Okay, so of these two movies, does Braveheart's freedom kick Mary's Queen of Scots woke agenda to the curb?
It was very woke.
Very woke. So we're going to take a harder look at it. And again, I wanted to come at this with a clean slate and say, I'm going to let these movies speak for themselves and go with that. I'm curious to see if anybody in the chat has seen, which of these two movies have you seen, if any at all? I would not have seen Mary Queen of Scots had we not done this review, and I wanted to put these side by side. And
I would have seen Mary Queen of Scots if you didn't say that you have to watch it before this review.
That's what I pay you the big bucks for. So paid? While you're putting, you get paid.
I got money.
I am sending the money to a guy named Jack Ray, and he's your agent, right?
That's what he told me. Why not?
Yeah. All right.
So my pay's getting doubled, though, right?
His is. Braveheart. Now, if you haven't seen it, let me give you a quick synopsis. Set in the late 13th century, so the 1200s, in Scotland. Braveheart follows William Wallace, played by Mel Gibson, a commoner who then becomes the leader in the First War of Scottish independence against English rule. After the murder of his wife, Muireann, by English soldiers, Wallace seeks revenge, sparking a rebellion against King Edward I's oppressive regime. He rallies Scottish clans, leading victories like the Battle of Stirling Bridge, but faces betrayal and political divisions among nobles, including Robert the Bruce. Wallace's charisma and guerrilla tactics inspire fights for freedom, though he is captured and executed in 1305. His sacrifices, spoiler alert, by the way, if you didn't know that, his sacrifices galvanizes Scotland's resistance, culminating in Robert the Bruce's later triumph. The film blends historical events with dramatic liberties, emphasizing themes of patriotism, sacrifice, and resistance against tyranny.
Yeah, sprinkled with a little bit of comedy every now and then. It was a really good mix between all of them.
Yeah.
I'll give it a 9.5.
I don't know if, okay, in Mary Queen of Scots, was there any humor? I don't think there was.
No.
I don't remember one spot when they're...
It's politically correct. The humor is discriminatory because someone might not get the joke. Therefore, you're discriminating against them.
Okay, got one view here. He says, Braveheart only being seen. And yes, I would agree with this. Send money to Eric and L conference for the conference that you guys have coming up. And by the way, this might be a good time for you to...
a month out.
Give a plug for that. What is this conference?
It is the upcoming Seek and Share Truth conference in Youngstown, Ohio. The tickets are free. If you search Seek and Share Truth online, you'll find it, or you can just go to my channel. Any of my recent videos, that's it in the description. We will have a ton of speakers and hopefully some debates. We had one of our debaters pull out on us. So,
no.
Yep.
Can you reveal who that was?
Oh, yeah, Daniel Kikuchu. He's holding us up on. My opinion was he was holding us up, not giving us a confirm one way or the other, because he kind of gave our friend a confirmation that we were going through, saying, yeah, I'll do it. But then after that, kind of like hedged back. Said, well, if they do these other topics, then yes. And then just wouldn't give it a solid answer one way or the other. So it's like, okay, guys, we got to have a deadline.
See, he's scared.
He's running.
He's running. All right. Thomas had a good response here. He said, normally I'm big on historical accuracy. With Braveheart, I don't care so much. I suppose because it was at the peak of the Gibson's career. So I know what to expect. I didn't see Mary.
So that's why I didn't get half a point. It's historically inaccurate. Other than that, I would have really gave it a 10 if they would have got the history right.
Okay, so what would you have given Braveheart?
A 9.5. That's what I said earlier.
I can't believe
That's
it,
not
guys.
The first one.
Not the first one?
Not the first one. Please silence all phones before the beginning of this live stream.
I did. That came back.
If he remembers. If not, then harass him in the comments below. Let him know that he did not delete this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if
Just
you can
just send him. Just remind him about his phone that he did not.
You guys are
remember
brutal.
turn it off.
Okay, so it's interesting that you don't really care too much about it, and there's I kind of agree with it. Sometimes we really forgive a movie if it's weird, it's really enjoyable. It's like I don't really care. You know, it's good enough. There's a lot of good comedy or some other great feature that goes with it. Kind of throw that out the window. So there was another poll that we took as well, and this was asking about where William Wallace came from. I threw the Island Man in there just because I like the flag with the legs sticking around.
Island Man is an interesting
thing. Where's the Island of Man? But it is obviously Scotland. For those of you who've seen, we're doing a theme on Scotland, so this is going to be it. And there were some others.
I voted other options.
75. I would, if I didn't know himself, I would have said Wales.
We said Wales.
Yeah.
Wales?
Yeah.
Really?
Welsh. Yeah.
Welsh?
Yep. Okay. So Scotland, Ireland, and Isle of Man. Now, you do have that one. I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but in the movie, you do have this one guy who kept saying, he was an Irishman, right? He says, "That's my land." And he's a crazy guy. And he worked out so well in the movie, I think.
He did. Again, the comedy worked. And then the twist with him was fantastic.
So another
my land.
It's my land. It's my land. I was thinking that maybe he was the king. They were going to put him out as the king there, and everybody was, it's the king. It would have been funny if it was. He was dethroned. Then Braveheart portrays William Wallace, a humble farmer fighting for freedom, but how accurate is his backstory? Pick the key accuracy, and we'll cover it in the live stream. So again, 9% to Wallace was a commoner, not a noble. 4% to the English killed his wife Miron. 4% was he was motivated solely by, remember, these are all inaccuracies. Okay, if that's what they're choosing is possibility of inaccuracy. 83% said all of the above.
All the above. And
all the above is the correct answer. So if you put that in there, give yourself a juice box because you did a good job and you got it right. Again, does that really matter? Well, it kind of does a little bit, because if you look at what's happening from a literary or a theatrical standpoint, commoner, his wife gets killed, and his father and brother get killed. His mother obviously is dead even before the movie starts. And he witnesses all these terrible things by the British. And finally, when his wife is killed, that's like the trigger. It's like John Wick's dog, right? It's the trigger that pushes him over the edge. And so from a theatrical standpoint, they said, listen, we want to garner viewer or reader empathy. So we're going to drum this up a bit, even though it's not true.
And again, that's where the problem happens, because people look at this as if it is. If you don't actually do the research, there are probably many people who will take it and say that those are all true. I mean, there are some people who did vote saying that some of those options were true.
Yeah.
In that poll.
Right. If they singled out any of the others just by themselves, that would have been the case, right?
Yep. So they obviously were misinformed. And the problem is with media like it is, people will take things without doing any research.
So they might point at this and say, here's an example. Braveheart, or William Wallace, is an example of a commoner that rose up against tyranny. And the answer was, really, historically, he was a nobleman.
Yep.
So he did, but there was also noble intrigue. There was a lot of that intrigue that was in there that had happened. There's a lot of accuracy was there as well, right? One thing that they didn't portray well, let's just go through this. There's a list of 5 things I have that are historically inaccurate. But before we jump into that, I'm going to check the chat again real quick. Amateur hour. Braveheart's historical inaccuracies are still fun to watch. Mary Queen of Scots inaccuracies feels like the bad punchline in a woke sermon. Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm assuming
that would be an apt description.
please confirm this, that you actually did see Mary Queen of Scots, because I think everybody else is kind of like, no, we haven't. And I would have passed over it. I wouldn't have seen it either.
No,
there's no appeal to me generally for watching it. Although in doing this and doing the research for this live stream and everything, I got more into that history, and you've got a nugget of history to share with that as well once we go through these inaccuracies. So checking a few of the other chats. Yes, it does a lot. I think you're saying it does not really match history. It is a Santa Claus movie style. Now, which one are you talking about?
Probably Braveheart, being that it's still good, but it's so inaccurate.
Yeah, I think if you it maybe really doesn't matter if there's just one movie or so, a couple of movies that are inaccurate. It's like, okay, just they're gonna have this. But if you're hit with a certain inaccuracy over and over and over again, and you see it in all the historical movies because there's a certain movement going that way, you're gonna think that's the way things are.
Yep, it's going to become normalized, and I think we'll see that is not accurate.
We'll see that with Mary, Queen of Scots, I think. I seriously doubt any Scottish nobles of the time were thinking in terms of freedom. But Mel knows how inspirational it is.
Yes, definitely to a culture that was built around the concept.
Around the concept of freedom?
Yes. Where he's selling a lot of movie tickets.
So, he is selling a lot.
I'm sorry. He knows his audience.
He does.
It was effective.
Now, I was going to hold this off till the end, and I'll mention this again here. But next week, we have coming up this movie, The Patriots, also Mel Gibson. And I was surprised in rewatching the Braveheart how many similarities, even similar lines about somebody asked him, "Are you a patriot?" I'm thinking, whoa. And Mel Gibson did this. He directed this movie as well, starring in it, and also The Patriot. I think he also directed. I'll just check to see if he directed that as well. But there's a lot of similar themes between the two, and maybe next year round. We're doing this around 4th of July. Go figure. If we do it again, we'll compare those two movies together. I think it'd be an interesting contrast.
Almost like he's selling tickets in the same geographical location.
Yeah, but it's I think it's a theme that resonates with a lot of people.
Oh no, it does, and it knowing your audience is very effective, and it does well. And I think he definitely knew his audience, and he was able to hit it with both of these movies pretty well.
And there is a movement for Scottish independence that was even in the 90s. It wasn't really that strong. They did have a couple of referendums, but there was more, not so much secession, but it was more popular that they'd say, hey, we'd like to have our own parliament, have more independence without being separate from England. We want to have more autonomy. So anyway, that was during the same time. One of the things that was not correct on, or a fictional part, was the romance with Isabella. Now this, do you remember that part of the movie? Okay, so this is not his wife.
Nope.
Who he got married to. This is the prince's, Edward I's son's wife.
Yep.
Okay. And he was portrayed as being a bit floozy. And you had that in there. Let's see if I have. There's a clip with them in here. So we have with it, that was Isabella, that was shown in the clip. The film depicts William Wallace having a romantic affair with Isabella of France, the wife of Edward II, culminating in her pregnancy with his child, implied to be the future Edward III.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. And boy, that would be kind of a twist, having him as your daddy instead of the other one. But that was a deviation from history. Why was that a deviation from history? Isabella was about 10 years old at the time. during his rebellion.
Wow, I didn't know Islam spread so fast.
I knew there was going to be a plug, and stay away from Islam. And she didn't marry Edward II until 1803, after Wallace's death. She couldn't have met him or been impregnated by Wallace. The subplot romanticizes Wallace's legacy and amplifies the anti-English sentiment. Okay. Did you, how about the Battle of Stirling Bridge? That was in there as well. Did you guys see that in the battle? Did you see the Battle of Stirling Bridge in there?
I believe so, yes.
You know the problem with the battle?
What?
There was no bridge.
Why would it be called the Battle of the Stirling Bridge if there's no bridge?
Well, in
lead up.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. That's why I pay you the big bucks. So they had the bridge in real life. There was a bridge, and they used that for tactical advantage against the English to have them narrow their forces down and so forth. That didn't happen. It was an open field. There was other tactics that were used. So yeah, that's probably an 8 out of 10 about being historically inaccurate. Is that going to matter a whole lot? Not really. Wallace's commoner origins as a childhood. Now we did talk about this earlier. He was a noble. So that's number 3. Number 4, exaggerated English tyranny and prima nocta. So the tyranny that was in there was tyranny with the English. You're going to get that in abuse of power in almost every government. I would think in every government. I don't think you'd have a form of government as long as it's led by human beings.
Humanity is inherently corrupt in its fallen nature.
So you're going to have this. So you can look at one movie and have King Richard, the Lionheart, that we did a review on. Have him as his great noble character. Okay, both thumbs up for that. Then you come back and say, you see this movie, and the English are these terrible tyrants. So you do have the jostling back and forth between the kings, and they can be good or bad. But it wasn't as they ramped it up quite a bit with this. What is prima nocta? And we're going to keep this as family friendly as we can. But what is the definition of prima nocta?
Are you asking me to define it?
Yeah, if you can.
Because you kind of hogtied, you say, don't talk about it, but talk about it. Because that's not nice.
Can you talk about it?
Noble man would go to the mommy and have some alone time with mommy talking about taxes. And after taxes were complete, this would be right after wedding, so they have to talk about the wedding taxes. And the noble would get this with all the wives, have to talk about taxes with each one of them
on their wedding
night before they go talk taxes with their husband.
That was amazing.
That was extremely hard.
That was amazing. No, you should get an Academy Award for that. That was fantastic. Yeah. So
both these movies we're reviewing are rated R, right?
Yes, they are. Yeah. I mean, there's
keep it family friendly.
If you don't know,
rated R movies.
Braveheart has both are rated R. Braveheart is more so on the violence, although there is some nudity in there, and it was more towards the violence. For Mary Queen of Scots, it was definitely towards the sexual aspect of it. And some on the violence, but more on the sexual part. So the film Braveheart portrays the English, particularly Edward I Longshanks, as cartoonishly tyrannical and enforcing prima nocta, the right of English lords to speak about taxes with Scottish brides on their wedding night, as a catalyst for Wallace's rebellion. So this is like, boom, that would get anybody like wanting rebellion.
Yeah.
There was no historical evidence that prima nocta was practiced in medieval Scotland or used by Edward I. English rule was oppressive, but the film exaggerates the one-dimensional villainy to highlight Scottish victimhood and nationalistic fervor. So, no. The last thing is simplified Scottish unity and Robert the Bruce's role. The film depicts the Scottish nobles as largely treacherous or cowardly, with Robert the Bruce as conflicted but ultimately heroic figure who betrays Wallace at Falkirk, but later leads Scotland to freedom after the fact. So Scottish resistance was fractured by clan rivalries. That is true. And Robert the Bruce's betrayal at Falkirk was debated by historians. Not really sure if that was the case at all. The problem with this whole thing with Robert the Bruce is he was more of a noble character than that. He was known as Robert the First of Scotland, and there was he was crowned king afterwards, but it doesn't look like there was the level of rivalry that was there. Okay, so I'm taking a look at the 5 things that we're looking at. We're going to look at 5 things on the other story as well, and see what you guys say about this. And I know too much about the revolution. It makes the Patriot a cringe fest. Oh, boy, this is going to be fun.
We'll see. We'll watch it. That's for another time.
Yeah. So if we're talking about, I really like the Patriot movie, though.
It's good, but it's got some historical inaccuracies, which is probably what he's referring to.
Yeah.
But it is interesting who he's based off of.
The ghost?
Yes, the ghost, or in actual history, the fox.
Then, yeah, but the scene where she tells King John she's carrying Wallace's child is great. The look on his face was priceless. Yeah, as he's dying, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that was a mic drop moment for her to do that, and to his son too, who definitely did not deserve the throne, at least in the movie, did not. And this is scare kids with taxes. I think this is no longer a kid-friendly show. How do you think the Pope would react to the local English bishops consistently tipping him off to Edward I's granting his nobles special moral privileges to openly break church laws on fidelity?
That would have been grounds for excommunication, to my understanding, of the king. And that would let his lands open for conquest.
Yeah. So that's a good point for historical accuracy there. Okay. So now let's take a look at the second film, Mary Queen of Scots. And before we do that, though, and I just haven't done it, and I needed to do it because we put some work into it, is wanted to show one last clip from Braveheart.
Go back to England and tell them Scotland is free. This one will fight forever. They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom.
Epic fighting, epic times. Say goodbye to those, because now we're going.
We're going to Mary Queen of Scots.
Different type.
Mary of Scots, and set a little historical context for it. William Wallace was executed in 1305. The events of the movie of Mary Queen of Scots focus on Mary Stuart's reign in Scotland, occurring roughly 256 to 282 years after Wallace's death. And yes, that is rough. I didn't say like the months or the days. Wallace's actions helped inspire Scottish resistance against English domination, contributing to Scotland's eventual independence under Robert the Bruce. This established a stronger Scottish national identity and monarchy, which Mary Stuart inherited as Queen of Scots more than 250 years later. So, what?
Go ahead.
I was going to say 250 years, kind of put some little context to that. That's like the difference between us and the Revolutionary War.
Mm-hmm.
So if we would have thought of William Wallace around that era, and then Mary Queen of Scots being a modern era, that's quite removed. And what were you going to say?
You don't know that she took the coat of arms from England and used it her entire time. That's one of her biggest disputes. And she always called herself the Queen of England. and Scotland.
There was some question about the inheritance, though, right?
She never respected Elizabeth's reign because she was Protestant, and she never submitted at all to her reign.
You do see that in the movie.
Yes, you do see some of that come out in the movie, but she's very. The movie portrays Mary as more of, we're just trying to get along. We're just trying to be nice.
Yes.
There's a lot more historical evidence that Mary was a bit of a conniving individual.
Okay.
To put it nicely.
Now, as for a little extra tidbit about Robert the Bruce. Yes, this guy here. Robert the Bruce was known as Robert I of Scotland, was an ancestor of Mary Stuart. Probably not a surprise. The central figure of Mary Queen of Scots. Specifically, Robert the Bruce was Mary's great-grandfather. Guess how many generations removed?
4 or 5? Nope.
250 years. 8 generations removed. So we took another poll and asked, what is a major historical inaccuracy in Mary Queen of Scots plot? 5% said Mary Stuart met Elizabeth I in person. Did not happen. 9%, but the others did. 9% said Mary's court included diverse nobles. Did not include diverse nobles, but everything else did happen. 0% said David Rizzio was not openly queer. And 86% said all of the above is inaccurate. And yes, that is true. All of that was historical inaccuracies. So you can see with the trends, we go through this, where the inaccuracies are. It's like how we're fudging history to tell the story that we want to tell. In Braveheart, it was English bad, tyrannical. All these nasty things happened to William Wallace, and then he went out and had this rebellion. And so, even though they modified history to make it look like it was a lot worse than what it was, to have better movie, right? To have more empathy towards it. So, how does Mary Queen of Scots move that needle a little bit, change history to make other things take effect? In what way?
So, well, let's start off with the diversity aspect. It really didn't add anything to the story at all, other than, again, trying to tell a story that, we're just see this woman leader when she's in charge. We're all diverse. We're all fantastic. We've got all these different races all working together, kumbaya sort of thing, except for the men who, let's be honest, there was no good man except for the transgender individual. None of them were portrayed as good except for him, I'd say.
Portrayed as being having any noble qualities.
Well, the rest of them were backstabbing, trying to take the throne for themselves, greedy, selfish.
Yes.
Obsessed with overthrowing the monarchy when it's women and replacing it with a man, because that's how it should be according to
that's true. Story. So let me do a quick synopsis on this movie. Mary Queen of Scots chronicles the turbulent reign of Mary Stuart, Queen of Scotland, in 1560s, as she navigates the religious and political strife. Returning from France in 1561 after her husband's death, and she married him at 15.
Which actually, that is historically true.
Yes.
And he died real quickly after the marriage.
Yeah, she had a few husbands. In returning from France in 1561 after her husband's death, Catholic Mary asserts her claim to the Scottish throne and potentially England's, challenging her Protestant cousin Queen Elizabeth I.
Now, this is historically just on the cusp of another queen that was called Mary, who was a Catholic, who ruled, and there were some fears that this might be the repeat of Bloody Mary. Who
they really didn't mention that in the movie, and that would have been good background, because I think that would have been a part
that
of it.
was a lot of the uprising from the common person worried about basically, now she didn't do it, but there was extreme concern that it was going to be a repeat.
Mary faces opposition from Scottish nobles, including John Knox, and her volatile marriage to Lord Darnley. It complicates her rule. Political intrigue escalates with the murder of her confidant, David Rizzio, and Darnley's death in a mysterious explosion implicating Mary's ally, Bothwell, and also implicating her. There was
Historically, it was implicating her because there's some serious question if she didn't blow up her own husband.
Yes. A fictional meeting between Mary and Elizabeth underscores their rivalry and contrasting choices. Mary's ambition versus Elizabeth's restraint. Mary's forced abdication and eventual imprisonment led to her execution in 1887, and the film emphasizes Mary's determination, faith, and struggle for power with modernized elements like diverse casting. Though historically inaccurate in parts, it portrays the era's complex gender and religious dynamics with compelling performances. I would say that the performances were pretty
good. I just don't like where they chose to focus.
It was more the writing, and the directing was good too. I like the directing.
But they also decided to skip like 1/3 of her reign. They just absolutely skipped the end because it went straight from, oh, you came here to England, to, oh, we're executing you. There were multiple years.
It did show that because
there was a whole nother rebellion. There was a whole nother war.
Yeah, but you okay? You
there
are
was
limited.
Actual bloodshed in that one.
Yeah, I think you're limited to. I'm going to give him a pass on this because you don't want to have a Lord of the Rings epic movie about this. I think
but considering all the rest of the movie literally is extremely slow paced.
That's true.
And the only battle they chose to focus on, by the way, they were more bloody in that battle than the actual battle. Historically, because that it's infamous because all it was one army chasing the other all around the countryside until they just gave up. No one died. It was completely bloodless. And that was the one they wanted to show as an actual fight. And it's like, I believe they're going for a different audience here. I think they're going for a female audience because it had more to do with relationships and intrigue and all that was going on there. And it wasn't so much the guts and glory of Braveheart that or any action. Except for when she blew up her husband. Yeah. That was at least engaging.
Yes.
Granted, they also said that her confidant slept with her husband on the wedding night.
Yeah.
Which that was screwed up. And the confidant's supposed to be the like transgender, cross-dressing, gay individual who fits that diversity, who's supposed to be like the best individual. And then he goes and immediately apologizes to the woman, to Mary. Oh, I'm so sorry. And her response is, well, you didn't betray yourself. You didn't betray yourself. That's what matters. I'm like, what?
So Jack Ray has some, it sounds like you've done some reading or you have knowledge of the history there. Scottish nobility kept getting worse, and finally Charles had to get clipped. And Mary, Queen of Scots, was not a good monarch in Scotland. Mean, arrogant woman. She was not portrayed that way in this movie at all.
She was gentle. She was kind. She was abused by the men in her council and manipulated by them. And all she could barely do just to hang on to the power that she was given by God and ordained for this by her family line.
And try to hold it together for Scotland and for her son.
Her son. And
do her best against all these evil men. Do her best against all these evil men. So then there's another comment here from Thomas. Kings and queens have a long history of backstabbing and plotting against family.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it's just for England itself. I think
monarchies in general have always been an issue with that.
Yeah.
Backstabbing and plotting.
So there's, before we get into some of the historical accuracies, I want to do a couple of clips here because unlike Braveheart, there haven't been as many people that have seen this movie, and I think it's to get a little taste of this to compare. So the first inaccuracy that we have is the meeting between Mary Stuart and Elizabeth I. Now you say,
This was
okay,
weird.
big, yeah, it was really, that's where the directing got weird. I would take
There
back
was
on the
really
directing.
bad scripting,
So
really bad writing.
So they
Characters
had,
changed.
they finally towards the end, the two met. Now there's all correspondence or all through diplomacy before sending messages back and forth.
Now, to be honest, early on, one of the reasons why the writing was so good early on is they heavily relied on their own actual letters going back and forth for that, which allowed for it to be very historical. But then whenever they went off those letters, it got weird. Like this.
Do not play into their hands. Our hatred is precisely what they hope for. I know your heart has more within it than the men who counsel you.
You would do well to watch your words.
I will not be scolded by my inferior.
Your inferior.
Are you afraid, Henry?
No.
Good. Because our swords are not just for show.
There we go. So there's an example of those two that were meeting. Never really happened. This was a dramatic face-to-face between Mary Stuart and Queen Elizabeth I in a secluded setting. Now, they do say in the movie...
Oh, we can't tell anyone about this.
It's a strictly secret.
Okay, fine. I'll give you that.
Pass.
Was there an opportunity that this could have theoretically occurred? Sure. Theoretically, yes. There's no documentation of it, but theoretically, I'll give you that one. I would give leniency for that part. How they acted in here was so out of the character that was established within the letters. No.
So another thing that they would see, and we see this a lot in historical films, and there's others that are far worse than this, but diverse characters. Now, I've mentioned this before as an author, and you tried to get a literary agent, and they often say there was a mantra that was going on. I don't think it's as popular as it used to be. We're looking for strong female protagonists, meaning masculine female protagonists, acting like men, and diverse characters. And they definitely have it in this movie. You have film includes non-white actors in historically improbable roles, such as Andrew and Lester. It's not just these two. There's a lot of these are the ones that were in prominent roles.
It's it's to the point of being distracting.
You see extras that are in there that are not necessarily in the credits, but you do see other races. Now, I'm not a racist. I'm not saying that this is it's just historically not accurate. And
nope.
What's the problem with having this go on in a movie? If it's just one, it's like it's laughable. Come on, guys, you got this wrong. But if you keep doing this over and over and over, what kind of picture does that paint?
It sends a historically inaccurate depiction, considering that they would not do this in reverse countries, such as in any black countries. They wouldn't, just stick a bunch of white people in there in an historical setting. They would try to keep more to it because you have all the diversity you want already, even though that's not actually the definition of diversity.
I don't know. There's some African nations that, like Mali, that did have Arabs in there because of the trading.
That makes sense. But I'm saying you wouldn't just randomly stick an Asian person in the middle of a Scottish court as one of the nobles. And the same.
Nobility comes through heritage, and if she was visiting dignitary, or if her parents, if she was born there because her parents were dignitaries or whatever, she would not have had any word quality for it. She wouldn't have any history with family history in the area, so she wouldn't have been.
And we're not talking about low level nobles. We're talking high level nobles who are in the upper courts of the queens.
So it's like, in a way, you could say, who cares about the historical inaccuracy for this? Fine, but I think it matters for us today, because if we look at, we can look at ourselves an examination and say, why are we so segregated? People were not like that in the past.
No, they
And
were.
the answer is they definitely were, because travel, number one, travel was much harder.
Yes.
And even if you go to certain places today in Asia and other places, there's a lot of racism where that you were not accepted. You were not a part of that group. And the idea of a mixing pot, a melting pot being a part of our heritage for hundreds of years is not true. And so that changes some of the philosophy there. So those characters are out. That was not true. Now, the next one would have been David Rizzio. Now, David Rizzio is an historical character. I believe he was from Italy. He was a confidant of Mary, and there was some speculation that the two were having an affair. So
A very strong.
yeah, because she was
questions.
hanging around with this guy so much.
In private settings.
Yes.
Very private settings.
Yes. And there's no historical evidence that Rizzo was queer or had a romantic relationship with Darnley, which they show in the movie. While rumors of Rizzio's influence over Mary existed, his murder was primarily due to political jealousy and suspicion of an affair with Mary, not, any kind of what they might call homophobia or anything.
But that's what they definitely painted it as like homophobia,
Yes.
transphobia, whatever phobias
Yeah.
you want to throw in there. That's what they painted it as.
Right.
How intolerant these white nobles are, because you didn't see any of the black nobles doing it.
No.
It's only the white nobles doing it.
So that was out. And I'm going to take a quick look at chat, because I think some other things have come in here now too. So he says, Artrick says, now I just want an accurate movie about King James I, the translations of the Authorized Bible, and the gunpowder plot. Unfortunately, Hollywood would not make that movie. There's a lot of movies that Hollywood would not make today, especially with anything with any kind of accuracy, because it would go against the narrative. China Belt and Road Initiative goes to Hollywood. Going Dynasty in Africa movies. Yes, changing history to fit something. Wait, kidding?
Kidding, yeah. The whole, like, putting a Chinese dynasty in Africa. They wouldn't do that. Although they definitely have done that.
I see what you're
Norway,
saying.
they definitely did that with, like, some of the Viking shows they've come out with.
Yes.
They put black characters as the main characters, and they put Asians in there, and they don't have any rhyme or reason for them to be there, but they're just, we're just going to throw them in there.
And I would not want to see a white actor do, the Emperor of Mali, Mansa Musa. I do not want to see that. That is not. No. It's not worth it. It's not good. And let's see, contrasting the movies, they both impose a modern worldview on historical context, which would have been foreign. One on the right, one on the left, helps us see our own biases. Yeah, so when we were looking at Braveheart, we did see a bias, for example, to say that, hey,
well, the whole freedom concept, that would have been a bias. That was definitely not there originally necessarily. There might have been some of that, but not in nearly the scale that they put forth.
So there's another clip here I want to show you. So we're going to be talking a bit about exaggerated feminist framing for Mary and Elizabeth, and this might show some of that.
Queen Elizabeth, your cousin Mary has returned to take up her throne in Scotland.
The Queen!
My dear cousin Elizabeth, I hope we might meet in person, that I might embrace you. But ruling side by side, we must do so in harmony, not through a treaty drafted by men lesser than ourselves.
Yep.
Whenever they were talking about those letters, that was their actual letters back
Right.
and forth, which I actually really enjoyed that part. I really enjoyed when they focused on their actual letters back and forth. Those were really good. Just all the other crap they shoved in there wasn't.
Yeah, I think that really tilted it. The film portrays Mary and Elizabeth as proto-feminist figures, emphasizing their shared struggle against the patriarchal oppression and downplaying their political ambitions. The rivalry is framed as a sisterly bond thwarted by men.
Not according to history.
No.
Where some of the letters were nice going back and forth, Mary was sending other letters to other people. And some of those were a bit more stabby related.
Yeah. It fit the culture. While both queens faced gender-based challenges, they were ambitious political actors who prioritized power and survival. Mary's Catholic zeal and Elizabeth's Protestant pragmatism drove their conflict, not just male manipulation. The film simplifies their motives to fit a modern feminist narrative. So, yeah, that's definitely.
Now, there was something interesting about this because they could have focused on the infighting between the Protestants and Catholics, and they chose not to hardly even touch that. It's in the background, but it's hardly ever mentioned.
Yeah.
It's just there. It's something that's in the background. They could have taken the very atheistic view, but they rather focus on evil men.
Well, they came down on John Knox.
Oh, yeah. That big time on him.
Yes.
Granted, he did seem to be a bit of a conniving individual.
Yeah, he did say some nasty things.
I could see where he'd be worried about the last Mary that was queen, kind of like beheading everyone that was Protestant.
Yeah.
So I could see where he might be going with that and saying, you guys seem to have a habit.
I never trust Christianity, Christian history in the hands of Hollywood.
No.
Not at all. So let's take a look at the short clip from that.
We have a scourge upon our land. 'Tis a woman with a crown.
So I do admit that it was interesting, the section on Queen Elizabeth getting the pox.
Yeah.
That was interesting because that's historical.
Yes.
That happened. And that's one of the reasons why she is so heavily made with the makeup and everything.
You know, that was lead-based?
Yeah. That was not healthy.
Kind of making things worse.
But they didn't know at the time either. So, but that was interesting. That was, I think, one of the interesting points. Was dealing with that. Okay, she's really, and she was sick. To a question of, oh shoot, she might just kill over and die. Now there was a reference to her saying, well, if the Mary would be a better queen than we could do worse than Mary. I don't think said that ever gave into that because I don't think they did not have that sort of mutual respect.
No. Okay.
No.
So they did show a little bit down film, but by like 90% of the film showed her just trying to, we're sisters, we're cousins, we're trying to work this together, against the patriarchy, all that kind of stuff. But there was, when they finally meet at the end, it was really kind of shocking when she just says, you're my subordinate. It's almost kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah. From the person who's seeking aid. From Queen Elizabeth, says, am I your subordinate? And basically declares herself Queen of England right there in front of her.
Yes.
You would kill a sister. You're queen. And like, okay, now that's actually more historically accurate.
Let's take a look at that.
Your beauty, your bravery. Now I see there's no cause for envy. Your gifts will be your downfall.
Should you murder me, remember you murder your sister. And you murder your queen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not what you do when you're asking someone for help.
No, that's why I was kind of shocked. It's like, you're not in a position here to be doing this. It's like, pick your fights.
But that was more of the relationship between them that we see in history. Because again, she was calling herself the Queen of England the entire time. So if you have someone up north constantly calling herself the Queen of Scotland and England, and you're the Queen of England down there saying, oh, well, and you're demanding that I make you my successor? If I do, I got a feeling there might be a knife in my back within a week. Just saying.
Just saying. Thomas Hall said, it looks like it was a big budget movie. Wonder why no one seems to remember it.
Yeah.
Hey,
I haven't heard about
it.
it.
It got nominated for costume and hairdressing. Hoorah.
Hoorah.
Freedom.
Yeah, that's about all you get with big budget movies nowadays.
1995, Braveheart. Back in that time, Hollywood was about big, bold epics, male-led, patriotic, merit-driven. Braveheart's martyr vibe and freedom cry were made for everyone, not just a Twitter bubble. 2018, Mary's Queen of Scots. Fast forward to this time, and it's an all Me Too, hashtag Me Too, and DEI. Hollywood's trading universal stories for niche woke preaching, chasing the claps from the blue-checked crowd. Would you want to wrap that up with anything else to compare these two?
It's basically sum total there. One is an epic, even if you're of the left or right, you can still enjoy the movie without feeling that you're being preached to necessarily. This one,
unless you're English,
you're definitely being preached to the entire time. In fact, I'm still really shocked that they even portrayed Queen Elizabeth like this, because there are some scenes that definitely seem like she was unhinged. And I know Queen Elizabeth is a very, very well respected queen in England. She's like one of their greats. And I guess I'd kind of parallel that to like Abraham Lincoln, or I guess George Washington sort of parallels to the United States, at least how they view her, to my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So to have them basically, she's almost schizophrenic in some of these parts in the movie.
I don't know. Maybe it was, like the Mad
crazy.
Hatter. Some of the chemicals they used in creating the hats did cause brain damage. I almost wonder if.
That and inbreeding does do that occasionally.
Yeah, but I don't think they were at that point.
Bad yet.
No, I don't think they were at that point. So if you enjoyed this, smash that like button and subscribe, and tell me in the comments what's worked for you and what hasn't. Has Hollywood's woke shift ruined historical epics? Next time, we're going to be diving into another one like I showed previously, and that is The Patriots. Sounds like we already have Jack Ray saying, it's got problems, and we're going to see what those problems are. But
I'm going to just give it 10 just to mess with Jack Ray.
I think you should. You're one and only 10. You would apply. You
10.
would spend your 110 just for that.
Oh yes. I'd do that to mess with someone. That would be fun.
So Eric, what's any recent releases that you have, or anything coming up soon that you want to share?
Sure. I have earlier this week. Earlier today, I released a short on a question that I even asked Muslims, asked some Muslim scholars even, and they were unable to answer the question. They just absolutely avoid it and try to downplay it as quick as possible. That being said, I also have a live stream coming up in about an hour with Lewis Lionheart. It's got Braveheart on the brain. Lionheart. Lewis Lionheart on his channel, Truth Defenders, coming up in a little bit on Genesis.
Very cool. Very cool. So until then, you guys stay sharp, and I'm looking forward to next.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.